America.
Down goes Frazier!
We choose life.
You believe in miracles?
The biggest celebration the Windy City has ever seen. Peace, it's wonderful.
Once the land of opportunity and health, now faces an epidemic of obesity, chronic diseases, and addiction. How did America get so sick? Is this just a natural decline, merely the effects of bad decisions? Or has this been meticulously orchestrated by powerful individuals propagating their ideology and goals? The US has the lowest life expectancy in the developed world. 40% are obese, 60% have a chronic illness, 50% will deal with mental illness, and the fertility rate of women aged 15 to 44 was 1.62 births per woman. This represents the lowest fertility rate in over a century. To understand where we are going, we need to understand how we got here. In the year 1953, America was on the cusp of a transformation. Post-war optimism was high, but beneath this veneer, a silent shift began in two critical areas of society: health and education.
Organizations such as the New York Psychoanalytic Institute have helped gain general acceptance for theories considered radical when first advanced some 50 years ago by Dr. Sigmund Freud.
After World War II, all government work dealing with health, education, and welfare of Americans was centralized under one massive department called HEW, the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. Eventually, HEW would evolve into the modern Health and Human Services, and the Department of Education was split off into its own agency. But HHS kept its title as the most expensive executive agency.
HHS is a massive agency. It includes Medicare, Medicaid, NIH, the CDC, FDA, and more. So it really does cover quite a lot.
With bloated research commitments and emergency preparedness projects.
Welcome to Event 201.
Taking the annual budget to over $1 trillion.
Health and Human Services could get an enormous chunk of change under President Obama's proposed budget. The president setting aside $1 trillion in spending.
We came to believe that big government was best for us because doctors were in positions of authority. This wave of government supersizing was a key component of the post-war New World Order, giving the federal government the resources and, most importantly, the power to enforce its edicts on the vast plains of our country.
As we recognize National Minority Health Month, I am happy to join my friends at the Office of Minority Health and throughout the nation to ensure that everyone is #vaccine ready.
To smoothly sell this New World Order takeover to the general public without any real pushback, the world's most prolific propagandist was enlisted to manipulate consumers to beg for this unholy change. There was a reason why education was included under the Agency of Health and Human Services, because the education we were given was meant to educate us to accept what they were selling.
Eat Wonder Bread. As much niacin for mental health as 6 sardines, as much energy as 2 glasses of milk.
What cigarette do you smoke, Doctor? More doctors smoke Camels.
Well, if I don't learn about propaganda, it won't be because there's no way to study it.
That's right, Chuck.
Let's take a Winston break. That's it!
Some are afraid that the DDT will poison them, while others suspect some sort of witchcraft. He now eats several spoonfuls of contaminated food. It's harmless.
He likes it! Hey, Mikey!
It's up to you, Mom.
Your family's breakfast really is up to you.
The alternative can be found here, where he should eat lots of grains, cereal, bread, noodles. What scientists are telling us now is that the threat of an ice age is not as remote as they once thought.
We saved the bald eagle, and together we can meet the challenge of global warming.
The wizard behind the curtain of manipulation was a man who coined the phrase public relations, because the word propaganda just left a bad taste in the consumer's mind.
My next guest is a truly fascinating gentleman. He happens to be 93 years old, and he is the father of public relations. In the course of his 70-year career, some of his clients have been Presidents Wilson, Hoover, Coolidge, and Eisenhower, Thomas Edison, Eleanor Roosevelt, and Enrico Caruso. It's a pleasure to welcome Dr. Edward Bernays.
The wizard, at the age of 93, opened the curtain to share with us his secret to success.
All right, now, Doctor, tell me again what the doctor is. What are we dealing with?
Well,
You're the father of public relations.
What we're dealing with really is the concept that people will believe me more if you call me doctor.
Oh, I see.
Edward Bernays had a doctorate, but not in medicine. His expertise was psychological warfare, and his mission wasn't to heal society, but to shape it with propaganda.
Intelligent men must realize that propaganda is the modern instrument by which they can fight for productive ends and help to bring order out of chaos.
Bernays was born in Vienna, Austria, in 1891. He was the nephew of famed psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud, and deeply studied and promoted his work. Bernays touted the idea that the masses are driven by factors outside their conscious understanding, and therefore that their minds can and should be manipulated by the capable few.
There are invisible rulers who control the destinies of millions. It is not generally realized to what extent the words and actions of our most influential public men are dictated by shrewd persons operating behind the scenes.
During World War I, Bernays was hired directly by the US government to create what he referred to as psychological warfare, to combat growing anti-war sentiments at home and abroad. It was in this role that Bernays realized his practice of propaganda could be used in peacetime.
When I got back from the war, I recognized that ideas could be as important weapons as anything.
It has as its target not the body, but the mind of the enemy.
And were even more effective than bullets.
His first target post-war was the all-American breakfast. Bernays was hired by the Beechnut Packing Company to increase their sales of bacon. Most Americans ate a small, light breakfast and barely consumed pork. So Bernays enlisted the backing of 4,000 doctors to endorse his new breakfast menu.
If you don't like bacon and you're interested in your health, as 4,000 doctors say that you better eat bacon, you do it.
Bernays simply defined, marketed, and educated the public what a hearty breakfast should look like, and then had the doctor's report published nationally.
Bacon and eggs and buttered toast. There's nothing like a good, healthy breakfast to start the day off right.
Today, 70% of bacon is eaten at breakfast. Next on the agenda for Edward Bernays' social transformation was his groundbreaking 1929 Torches of Freedom campaign. George Washington Hill, the president of the American Tobacco Company, realized the potential market that could be found in women and said,
"We have a problem. We're losing half the market in America because there is a taboo against women smoking, particularly smoking in the streets."
Bernays had to change public opinion and eliminate the social taboo against women smoking in public. He gained advice from psychoanalyst A. Brill.
He said, cigarettes to women are torches of freedom, and then he added as an afterthought, and they titillate the erogenous zones of the lips.
Bernays kicked off his social experiment by paying women to smoke their torches of freedom as they walked in the Easter Sunday parade in New York.
We would get debutantes to light torches of freedom in the Easter parade to protest man's inhumanity to women by the taboo against smoking.
The cigarette came to symbolize rebellious independence, glamour, seduction, and was a spark for the feminist movement. Bernays ingeniously linked cigarette smoking with the theme of female emancipation. In 1923, women only purchased 5% of cigarettes sold. In 1929, that percentage increased to 12%, eventually peaking to 33%. Bernays' tactics were deadly effective and were used across the world, even by the Nazis.
The Nazis, incidentally, were very impressed with U.S. commercial propaganda, the kind that Bernays and the PR industry was developing. Goebbels studied it carefully, he refers to it, they adapted it to their own purposes, and very successfully, unfortunately.
People were ripe for molding by an invisible government staffed with faceless experts who know better than the average person and have earned the right to govern without oversight.
Propaganda is the executive arm of the invisible government.
Bernays, the godfather of propaganda, set the foundation for consumer-based mind manipulation and control, introducing us to the world of planned obsolescence, the practice of making a product to break quickly so the public has to perpetually buy replacements. He even planted the seed which would later become Netflix through his great-nephew, Mark Bernays Randolph. With doorways into the homes of every American, he's reshaping narratives disguised in the form of entertainment, promoting the goals and ideology of those who want to control us. But there are those who have glimpsed the true nature of the system, its vast, intricate web of intentions and consequences. They have peered beyond the veil, seen the gears and cogs, understood the endgame, to be the beacons of light in the encroaching darkness, to save those who will listen.
Are you Owen? That's awesome.
There's millions and millions of people out there that are not awake yet. And in order to wake people up, you have to take them through pain.
Waking up, and we are here because we will not consent. We will not consent to those vaccines being pushed on our children or on us.
We have to get fluoride out of the public water supply because it's damaging the brains of children. It's lowering IQs, and it's harming adults and senior citizens alike. It's a mass poisoning of America. It's got to stop.
Dr. Mary Bowden had been suspended for her comments on vaccines.
Bowden also accused the hospital of turning away unvaccinated patients.
Now people are terrified to go to the hospital.
We've got socialism creeping into every part of government and business. The time to fight back is now.
There are 500 million people there, controlled by unelected bureaucrats with no accountability.
The climate is even worse than we are being told.
At this point, this is an emperor has no clothes moment. That's the best description I can give for something that is so blatantly obvious and inarguable, can only be considered weather warfare at this point.
The fact that Kennedy or Trump is going to declare a state of emergency for health.
He wants to do some things and we're going to let him go to it. Go have a good time, Bobby.
When my uncle was president, we spent 0 on chronic disease.
Now we spend $4.3 trillion. But I can get the corruption out of the agencies. This is what I've been doing for 40 years. I have a PhD in corporate corruption, and that's what I do.
Jonathan W. E. Maud is a constitutional and administrative lawyer who has appeared before the federal courts and agencies for 35 years. He is the only attorney in American history to have defeated the FDA 8 times in federal court.
Our founding principles are derived from the concept of individual liberty. The Founding Fathers adopted a republic form of government precisely because they wanted to limit and check power in the hands of governors so the people would be sovereign. There are 4 great principles that define the American Republic. They're articulated in the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. That all men are created equal and that they're endowed by their Creator, by God, with certain unalienable rights, among them the rights to life and liberty, pursuit of happiness. The next notion is that government exists only by the consent of the governed, and that just governments derive their power from the consent of the governed. These principles defined what it meant to be an American at the founding of the Republic. They gave us the Constitution. The Founding Fathers were deeply interested in limiting the power of the federal government. In fact, the Constitution defines a government of limited powers. Only those powers delegated are possessed by the government. Why is that? Because they wanted to ensure that there was a maximum degree of individual liberty.
We need to elevate the Constitution of the United States, which was written for hard times, and that has to be the premier compass for all of our activities.
So in the progressive era, in the 1920s, efforts were underway by largely liberal activists to rebuild in America an administrative state that had actually been in existence in Germany. And they learned to hate individual liberty. They learned that the Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence were all backward thinking for an industrial age. It's interesting, Franklin Roosevelt ran on a pro-capitalist platform against Herbert Hoover. He ran on a platform of cutting back government and unleashing market forces to solve the Depression.
I have said this before, but I shall say it again and again and again. Your boys are not going to be sent into any foreign war.
When he got elected, however, he then is influenced by 2 major forces in his administration. The Assistant Secretary of Agriculture, Rexford Tugwell. He went overseas, as did many of the people who became a part of the Roosevelt administration, and they went to Stalin's Soviet Union, and they also went to Benito Mussolini's fascist state. And they have this love affair with this idea of centralized government power.
The dawn of a government-centralized authority over health and education had begun.
It is true that the toes of some people are being stepped on and are going to be stepped on.
By the time we leave the Roosevelt administration and we enter into the 1940s, we have over 200 federal agencies invested with separate powers that were meant only to be in the hands of Congress.
Today, the Department of Health and Human Services includes 13 operating divisions. Within the National Institutes of Health, there are 27 separate institutes and centers. It has become a government inside a government, with unelected bureaucrats creating policies and mandates forced upon the populace.
And they're ruling like oligarchs. You have agencies of the government that have complete control over areas of regulation that were never intended to be that way by the founders' construct, by the Constitution. So it would regulate every aspect of your life, potentially.
A huge country like America was the perfect place to put in an industrialized food system. And that food system has moved in parallel to the drug industry. After the Second World War, we saw this incredible boom of organic chemistry, this ability to alter molecules at will so you could stamp a patent on them. So the big food producers, just like Big Pharma in the drug area, started to modify foods so that it could basically sell them to us in a way that would create addiction.
Call this transhumanism now that's happening with the humans. This happened in the food industry years ago. It's a trans food industry where they started bringing chemical synthetics into the food industry to be able to alter your behavior through food, be able to get you addicted through food, to be able to deposit chemicals and make you addicted to these chemicals in food.
The people who live long, healthy lives are the people who are close to nature, have intact social systems, understand family values, understand how to sit around a table and consume your food when you're in rest and digest mode rather than fear mode. We need to be in that parasympathetic side of an autonomic nervous system. It's well known in science, yet your average physician doesn't turn around and say, tell me not only what are you eating, but how are you eating?
If we do not reform HHS, FDA, CDC, and NIH, then frankly, we are in dire straits as a nation. We cannot survive the fraud and corruption of the federal agencies that have been weaponized against us while they protect the profits and the financial interests of big pharma, big food, big ag, the poisoners of society.
Bobby Kennedy is a true hero. He was featured in The Truth About Vaccines, and we are honored to have him present his keynote tonight on Gardasil. So please give it up for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
I was 7 years old. I went to the inauguration of my uncle as president in Washington, D.C.
Ask not what your country can do
And
for you.
3 days before that, President Eisenhower, the outgoing president, made what today we have to regard as the most important speech in American history. And it was the speech where he told Americans that they should be in fear
by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes.
And I urge you to go look at that speech, because after he talks about the military-industrial complex,
we must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific, technological elite.
The poisoning and the genetic modification and the plan of creating a synthetic world. And the industrial complex is so ingrained in owning and patenting everything from the seeds to the agriculture to the energy production to the politics to the pharmaceutical industry. And now what we're seeing, if you look at all the biotech and big pharma work, including agricultural, for the last 10 years, is everything is going into nanotechnology. Transhumanism agenda, World Economic Forum talks about this. We've been studying this since 2016. Came out on Alex Jones in 2018 and revealed all this information, predicting the pandemic, predicting the bioweapon shots, the integration of Human 2.0. This is where they're going with everything.
It's going to be very easy to introduce and control a biological weapon and then be able to force vaccinate the whole population.
The interesting part in my life was when I was about to take my MCAT because I wanted to be a heart surgeon. And I sat next to this guy, and this is in the mid-90s, by the way, and this guy was talking to me about natural health. He was talking to me about, back then, what would be considered conspiracies. And he was arguing with me because I was like, oh, we have the best scientists in the world. We have, all this money going to the American Cancer Society and all this. We're gonna, have all these diseases eliminated in the next 5 years. And he was basically laughing at me saying, this is all planned. This is all a big show, like the Truman Show. And so we got argued back and forth, and then he said something to me. He said, have you ever broken down a pharmaceutical and actually looked and see what it does to the body? The analogy that he used when he was talking to me, if the oil light comes on in your car, would you go get the oil changed or would you put a Band-Aid over the oil light? And I was like, I would go get the oil changed. And he goes, well, what pharmaceuticals are doing is they're just putting a Band-Aid over the problem. The problem is still there, and it's always going to be there until you address what causes that problem. And the dinner was over, and I went home, and for 2 days I couldn't sleep, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on? So I drove to the medical library, and I spent 6 hours. That's all the time I needed to determine that the majority of stuff I had been taught was a lie. I had to come to the realization, like, I learned that so many things were lies and deceptions. I had to just say, I mean, it was like, what if? What if everything I've been taught has been a lie? What if I'm living in this movie? What if I'm living in this matrix? And everything is controlled. The narrative is controlled. And maybe the opposite of everything that I've been taught is actually the truth. The political system was engineered. The healthcare system was engineered. The agricultural system was engineered. Basically, this whole system that we've been living in was engineered.
Whatever of social importance is done today, whether in politics, finance, manufacture, agriculture, education, must be done with the help of propaganda.
The role of the media in a democracy is to maintain a fierce posture of skepticism toward government authorities and toward official pronouncements. That was what the media did in this country for the first 285 years of our existence. But in the last decade, and particularly culminating in COVID, you saw the media completely take the opposite posture.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. Dangerous. Dangerous.
Dangerous.
Dangerous. Dangerous.
Dangerous. Extremely dangerous.
This is
extremely dangerous to our democracy.
The biggest weapon that's been used against humanity has been disinformation. It's been information warfare.
Let me ask you something, because didn't they take you guys off of Facebook? What do they do with you?
Yes, Facebook has
They
been
just
a
throttle
nightmare.
you, or do they take you off completely?
Well, they're threatening right now to take us off completely. So we've got The Truth About Cancer, which is our bigger page. We've got over 1 million people on this page. And it's not as censored as The Truth About Vaccines. We've got a Truth About Vaccines page, Bobby. It's a Truth About Vaccines docuseries. So when you go in the search bar and you put those words in, the first thing you'll see is the WHO, or Bill Gates Foundation, or Baylor Medical Center, and so on. 25 pages, and then finally you'll see our page.
The idea that drug companies can advertise directly to consumers while paying off the corporate media, well, this is a horrible cabal. This is a racket.
They've captured Congress, they've captured the press, because they're the biggest advertisers, pharma and food. And they're brainwashing us. And then, of course, they start when kids are little with this advertising, Tony the Tiger, et cetera, the same way the tobacco industry did.
Still great, huh?
They're great. Particularly the evening news shows are just bracketed one after the other by pharmaceutical ads.
Brought to you by Pfizer. Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer.
CNN Tonight. Brought to you by Pfizer. Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer.
And so, you look at somebody like Anderson Cooper. I think Anderson Cooper makes about $20 million, give or take. If you say he's got a $20 million salary, And 75% of that or 80% of that is coming from the pharmaceutical companies. That's who his real boss is.
There's more breaking news tonight. An advisory committee of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has voted to recommend Pfizer's COVID vaccine for children ages 5 to 11 under emergency use.
Brought to you by Pfizer.
The pharmaceutical and health product industries alone spent about $4.7 billion on lobbying from 1999 to 2018, averaging $233 million per year. This included $414 million on contributions to presidential and congressional electoral candidates.
You know, you should not be able to buy the vote of your congressman. And the most concerning part about this is that a very large amount of the money that is given to congressmen, whether through direct donations or PACs or what have you, is actually foreign money.
The watchdog website, Open Secrets, is currently tracking 182 countries. Here you can see what countries are spending the most on lobbying, influence, tourism, and trade promotion in the United States. Since 2016, China is leading the way with over $5.5 billion.
Anthony Fauci shifted a lot of his operations offshore. And those operations ended up, most of them in the Wuhan lab, which is a military lab, and that the Chinese run, the People's Liberation Army. And then a lot of them went to the Ukraine. So a lot of that science now, and it's funded, Fauci was funding lots of it. But then the other government agencies began to get confidence in, their ability to get away with it. And most of it is being funded by the Department of Defense. Most of all, the biggest single funder is USAID, which is, a CIA cutout.
There are two driving forces for control. And both of them have a role to play, but one of them has become increasingly important over everything else. The two factors that drive control are personal financial wealth, and the second one is directing society to an outcome that you prefer. And this is totalitarianism. This is the opposite of individualism. This is the opposite of free enterprise. This is when a person, and this is due to arrogance, this is an assumption that I know better than you do what's in your best interest. This is what drives bureaucracy. The basic bureaucrat is basically living off of this concept that those in Washington who've been deigned appropriate to regulate know better than you do what's in your own best interest.
I'm standing outside of the United States Capitol, which oversees the FDA. Unfortunately, many of the members of this august body that we elect are taking their campaign contributions from big pharma, big ag, and the big food processing companies that FDA is supposed to regulate.
So what we have is an unconstitutional system. We have a broken republic because the powers that were meant to be kept in the branches of the government, but the Constitution defines, have been taken out and put in individual hands. In the area of food and drug, the consequences have been immense.
New developments in a controversy we've been following since Friday night. A local doctor's privileges pulled after a series of tweets about COVID-19 vaccines and treatments. Houston Methodist is calling Dr. Mary Bowden's opinions dangerous and full of misinformation.
Lies, you're telling me that you'll be true.
Houston Methodist says that Dr. Mary Bowden recently joined the staff there and as of today has never admitted a patient there. Tonight she has been suspended for, quote, spreading dangerous misinformation which is not based in science.
Dr. Mary Bowden had been suspended for her comments on vaccines.
Now they have suspended her hospital privileges because they say she is spreading dangerous information about COVID treatments.
This after she was temporarily suspended for advising against vaccines for children.
Last fall, Houston Methodist suspended Dr. Mary Bowden, claiming that she spread misinformation on social media.
Dr. Mary Bowden is facing 3 anonymous complaints for her stance on the use of ivermectin to treat COVID-19.
Spreading what they call, quote, dangerous and false information
Bowden's Twitter account shows a series of tweets praising the anti-parasitic drug ivermectin. However, the CDC and FDA both caution people from using the drug to treat COVID, citing a sharp increase in reports of severe illness caused by the drug to poison centers.
So I'm Mary Talley Bowden, and I'm in Houston, Texas. I'm an ear, nose, and throat and sleep medicine specialist. I sort of was thrust into the media. I had been treating COVID patients. Unlike a lot of other doctors in my area, I actually welcomed people who were sick. I heard a lot of patients telling me, well, my doctor won't see me, and just told me to go to the emergency room. So I did what I could. Prior to the pandemic, I really didn't give the FDA much thought at all as a doctor. I knew they were there to approve medications. I knew as long as they were on the market, I could use them. I didn't have to, look up the approved indications and abide by those. So when they started making these proclamations against ivermectin, they were violating their boundaries, and they basically interfered between doctors and patients. And I sued them for that, and we actually won our lawsuit. Because they put that misinformation on their website, and then they also put out the horse tweet. It says, seriously, y'all, you're not a horse, you're not a cow, stop it. Their lawyers said, oh, it was merely a quip, but that quip had dire consequences because it resulted in medical board complaints. So shortly after that, I got reported to the medical board, a slew of other doctors got reported to the medical board. It resulted in pharmacies refusing to fill prescriptions that doctors were writing for ivermectin. It resulted in hospitals refusing to give inpatients ivermectin. And it even affected the court system. So people who were suing to get ivermectin, who were in the hospital and trying to get ivermectin, the judges were citing the FDA's stance on ivermectin as a reason to deny people ivermectin. Their motivations were not to help the public. Their motivations were wrapped around the COVID shot.
Today, Dr. Bowden said she believes Houston Methodist is trying to make an example out of her.
If they are so confident in their position, let's see it all. Let's see complications, complaints, let's see breakthrough cases, let's see all their data.
In response, hospital CEO Mark Boom told us, in part, quote, as a physician, I'm personally offended by her behavior and by her misleading comments about COVID-19 and our hospital system.
I was reluctant to start using ivermectin at first. I was worried, but I just did my research. I went to the FDA's website. I found where the studies they submitted to the FDA to get it approved. And I looked at all the toxicity data. I did a literature search trying to find examples of overdose from ivermectin and couldn't find anything. So, it was very easy to verify, okay, is ivermectin as dangerous as they're saying it is? But for some reason, doctors just didn't take that step. But I think so much of it is just, they're just not independent, and there's third-party interference, and it's just so much safer to go along.
News network you work for out and out lied, just outright lied about me taking horse dewormer.
They shouldn't have said that.
Why did they do that?
I don't know.
You didn't ask?
Take a look at the two side by side where you can clearly see the deceptive and despicable, really quite hilarious filter that CNN did on the video.
It blows my mind that Joe Rogan just yesterday admitted to taking ivermectin.
Yes, that's the deworming medicine made to kill parasites in farm animals.
Ivermectin apparently given to deworm animals.
So things are clearly bad, but they're being made even worse by people who have refused to take the vaccine and instead are swallowing horse paste.
Wait a second. He said that he got better because he ate cattle dewormer.
Doctors say you could take it for humans. Yeah, but not for coronavirus.
The endpoint needs to always be mortality. If you protect someone from a disease and they die more frequently, this is highly illogical. We can't recommend that drug. And it seems laughable, right? But we actually did this for many, many years in chemotherapy. So in chemotherapy, we found all these drugs, and the FDA was approving them. And they were approving them even though the patients who got the experimental drug, not the placebo, the experimental drug, they died more often and earlier their tumors were shrinking. So they're like, oh, let's approve it and see what happens. And it didn't work out. And it went on for years and years, and there were many drugs they tried, and they killed a lot of people sooner than they would have if they had just actually left them alone.
Because people used a lot of homeopathy during COVID, what the FDA did in December 22 is they passed new guidance that said our interpretation of the law that dates all the way back to the Food, Drug and Cosmetic Act of 1938 says that these products needed to be licensed, fully licensed. And because none of you guys who've been following the homeopathic pharmacopoeia have got licenses, drug licenses for your products, it's all illegal.
The Food and Drug Administration is not answerable to you. It's not answerable to Congress, really. It's not answerable to the courts. And my whole career in litigation has been suing the FDA when they violated your individual rights. Your individual rights to have an information indispensable to your decision about your own health.
We are literally in the middle of the Brazilian rainforest here. And I chose this place because it's very isolated. So if the shit hits the fan, it's kind of already hitting the fan. I'm at a place where I'm 100% self-sufficient. For example, here we have 20 kilowatt hours of batteries. This is powered by solar. You can see it on the roof. There's a 11 kilowatt.
Technology.
Exactly, with technology, Starlink on the roof, so I'm very well connected here. I have electricity, fridges, which wasn't normal in the past. But everything else is literally how it used to be. So I'm living here among jaguars, among animals you only find in the zoo in the US, and here it's reality, here it's quite normal. Let's go to the chickens. Yeah, I can let them outside even. You can even take a thing how I open this thing. Oh my gosh, it's cool. I didn't let them out because, and they're super friendly. Come, okay, quite friendly. The rooster is very aggressive, but the others are very friendly. Yeah, they lay many eggs, so every day I have approximately 10 eggs. Sometimes they even go on your nerves and they come after you, but... Oh yeah, this I call, I think, chicken breast. There's chicken McNuggets, and this one is a soup, yeah, whatever. No, chicken's very delicious, and they have a great life. They have here, I think, 5,000 square feet of area. And you see the whole fence, it's passion fruit, so I'm trying to combine things. They poop here, it's used as a nutrient, gets used as a nutrient for the passion fruit. I eat the passion fruit, the chicken eats the passion fruit as well. And it's a circle life. So let's go to the greenhouse. Let's go to this system first here. So what you can see literally here, so there is a strawberry system at the top. So when we got here, we had issues. Nothing was growing, all my tomatoes were dying until we figured out why. Like water logging in the soil, insufficient nutrients, no drainage, and then you just cope with the problems and you figure out a solution for yourself. And now everything is actually growing, now we don't have any issues, and if you have a system like this, you don't hardly need any maintenance.
Dr. Simon Gudek found himself an enemy of the status quo. After publicly writing his concerns with the PCR testing during COVID, he was ostracized and fired from his position as one of the leading scientists in his field.
So I think, there were not many scientists who spoke out. So most of them remained silent. I have colleagues who totally agree with me. They just write me personal emails saying Simon, I found you there. Oh my gosh, so brave. We weren't brave. We'd want to keep our jobs, stuff like this. So these people exist. There are many scientists who are critical, but they know once they raise their voices, they're going to be canceled. I didn't know. I was super naive. I thought I'm just doing my job. For me, it was just doing my job as a scientist. Be critical towards everything. That's what a scientist does, in my opinion. So I was talking about vitamin D, and they were hostile against me. I was like, okay, this is weird. But I thought when I was speaking out against the PCR test and explaining why this is impossible, they would embrace me. But the opposite happened. So.
What were you speaking out of that got you? What did they say? What were the big ones?
So you mean why I got cancelled in Norway? I just Twitter. I am an editor of Springer Nature Journal, and I will give you some more insights into scientific peer review processes and why fraudulent manipulation with respect to C. Drosten's PCR paper most likely took place at the Journal of Publication at Eurosurveillance. If mosquitoes on you, oh my gosh, you're gonna suffer tomorrow. Dead. So what we actually showed is that 90% of the PCR tests were false positive. And do you remember the measures for someone who had a positive PCR test? Stay at home, isolate, don't do anything. They were scrapped from their civil rights just because of a test that wasn't able to show if someone's sick or not. No, it's literally like I was talking to my mom and I was like, don't get the vaccine. She's like, but my MD I trust, he told me to. And I was like, I was sending them studies and all this stuff. You know, I'm a scientist. I understand what I'm talking about. At least I believe I understand, so I'm telling them my truth. And yeah, I turned out to be right. I think they're doing this. It's all about control. So who's easier to control? The healthy person or the sick person? So if you are on prescriptions the whole time, you know, you're taking these and these and these meds, and they're telling you, okay, if you stop, you can't, you know, you're gonna die, etc. So they're kind of blackmailing you. It's gaslighting. It's actually medical gaslighting. And I think this is the way they control you.
You know, the other piece of the puzzle we haven't talked much about is Congress. You know, Congress has a role in oversight and running these government agencies, and clearly they're not doing anything to stop this. And that's the reason why is obvious. You know, they're rolling in the money too. Many congressmen have very, very large sums of shares in numerous pharmaceutical companies. In fact, you know, one blockbuster drug can significantly change someone's portfolio. Congress is not providing oversight, and the FDA is passing and approving drugs, which about 1/3 of the time turn out to need a black box warning for severe life-threatening adverse effects.
So the FDA needs to be completely restructured. Now the NIH, the National Institute of Health, where Fauci was, that is the biggest government-funded pharmaceutical research entity on the planet.
So many people would think that the NIH is it's a government agency. It must be taxpayer funded, but the reality is approximately 50% of the budget is funded from the pharmaceutical industry, as well as 4 at least high-level employees at the NIH actually get royalties from the Moderna vaccine.
The NIH research teams need to be doing research on the root cause of disease. That's where you get the NIH involved doing research on all these synthetic chemicals in foods and completely organizing their research around health and humanity instead of, you know, working in conjunction with Big Pharma on, Big Pharma is basically getting government-funded research for free through the NIH.
The NIH funded research that contributed to the development of 354 of the 356 drugs approved by the FDA between 2010 and 2019, with the NIH investing $187 billion into the development of these drugs.
As a matter of fact, very specifically, in 1999, Anthony Fauci funded research at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, specifically to create, and you cannot help but lament what I'm about to read, because this comes directly from a patent application filed on April 19th, 2002, and you heard the date correctly, 2002, where the NIAID built an infectious replication defective coronavirus that was specifically targeted for human lung epithelium. In other words, we made SARS.
In the year 2000, Bill Gates and Tony Fauci shook hands on a partnership, and they made a deal that they were going to promote vaccines worldwide and have universal compliance. And they named their project the Decade of Vaccines. They said by 2020, they're going to have complete global compliance with their vaccine program. And that's when Gates began investing in all of these quasi-governmental agencies, creating them and also making large investments in vaccine companies and in mRNA vaccines. Both men were repeatedly making these extraordinarily accurate predictions.
Well, we always have to worry that a new epidemic's going to come along. A flu epidemic that could go global. I think an epidemic, either naturally caused or intentionally caused, is the most likely thing to cause, say, 10 million excess deaths. To take a new way of building vaccines that could let us develop in less than a year a novel vaccine. They're called DNA RNA vaccines, and so we'll fund a few projects.
Fauci was, we call him the Naiad Nostradamus, because he was literally to the day predicting the outbreak of this pandemic.
There is no question that there will be a challenge, the coming administration, in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak.
And then the other thing that I aspirationally hope to be able to encounter is the ability to rapidly respond to something brand new, whether it's a brand new pandemic.
With a major shift in the pandemic fight after the FDA gave full approval to the Pfizer vaccine for Americans 16 and up. Afterward, many employers and universities started issuing ultimatums telling workers and students to get the vaccine or they cannot return in person.
These are experimental deadly jabs that have never gone through randomized, placebo-controlled, peer-reviewed studies that should be necessary to prove something is safe before it can be injected into hundreds of millions of people in our nation alone. The entire process by which the FDA determined emergency use authorization was fraudulent and criminal. And it should be investigated, and those involved in those decisions should, in my view, be arrested and prosecuted by the DOJ. They committed a crime against America, and children, adults, and senior citizens died as a result of their malicious actions because they wanted to create a windfall of profits for Big Pharma. And that crime against humanity, that crime against the American people, continues to this day. The vaccine industry is a criminal cartel, and it's time to shut it down.
I don't think it could have happened without institutional corruption, without this intimate malfeasance in between the agencies, the media, Congress, the pharmaceutical companies. Without this incestuous relationship, I don't think it would have been possible to bring a drug like this that was so dangerous to market and then not only recommend it, but actually mandate it against people's will. People were held down. People were held down and forced to take this drug.
The CDC is currently recommending that all babies get 3 COVID shots by the time they're 9 months old. That is the government recommending that. That is insane.
The CDC giving the go-ahead following the FDA authorization on Friday.
And the reason why it is so critical to be acting now is that these entities have now basically become one with government.
9 out of the last 10 FDA commissioners went on to work for the pharmaceutical industry.
It should be considered, and I don't know the best way to do this, but if you want to go into service in the government and you want to lead one of these government agencies, let's say in medicine and pharmaceuticals, we should probably come up with a moratorium with you working within that environment.
So within a 4-year period, I think there's a real opportunity on the condition that we can ensure that overreach by the agencies, FDA, FTC in the United States have been a major problem in this area. That could go within the first 100 days of a new administration.
Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
Frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond. This will forever be remembered as the day the American people regained control of their country. And these are hardworking people. These are fantastic people, and we can add a few names like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He came in.
He asked me to restore the tradition of gold standard, empirically based, evidence-based science and medicine in our regulatory agencies. There's 1,000 ingredients in our food that are illegal in Europe and other countries, so we're just mass poisoning us, and nobody has chronic disease epidemic like we do in our country. I have said for 17 years, I'm not anti-vaccine. I just want good science. I want people should be able to make informed choices. I am against vaccine mandates. And he asked me to
make America healthy again.
Sheriff in town.
There are very few people in the United States of America who are less qualified to lead the Department of Health and Human Services than Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Just last week, Mr. Kennedy suggested COVID-19 was a bioweapon.
By spreading disbelief in science and conspiracy theories, even if he takes no regulatory measures at all, he's going to undermine public commitment to vaccination.
Peddling these anti-vaccine conspiracy theories as our chief health officer is going to endanger the lives of kids and seniors across the nation. After a careful review of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s statements, actions, and views, materials that I have reviewed personally and closely, I've reached the conclusion that he should not be entrusted with the health and well-being of the American people. When he's taken every side of every issue, how can this committee and the American people believe he has anything to say?
In my advocacy, I've often disturbed the status quo by asking uncomfortable questions. Why are we have the worst health of any country on earth? Why don't you make the vaccines safe? You're writing all these articles condemning me coming into Washington, dismantling the pharmaceutical paradigm. Where are you getting your salary?
People aren't stupid. We can see what's happening. We can ask the question, cui bono?
Well, I'm not going to apologize for that. We have massive health problems in this country that we must face honestly. And the first thing I've done every morning for the past 20 years is to get on my knees and pray to God that he would put me in a position to end the chronic disease epidemic and to help America's children. That's why I'm so grateful to President Trump for the opportunity to sit before you today and seek your support and partnership in this endeavor. I will conclude with a promise. The members of this committee, to the President, and to all the tens of millions of parents across America, especially the moms, who have propelled this issue to center stage. Should I be so privileged as to be confirmed, we will make sure our tax dollars support healthy foods. We will scrutinize the chemical additives in our food supply. We will remove financial conflicts of interest from our agencies. We will create an honest, unbiased, gold standard science at HHS, accountable to the President, to Congress, and to the American people. We will reverse the chronic disease epidemic and put the nation back on the road to good health. Thank you.
The very people who are now telling us how we should produce food and manage our health are actually the people who have created the crisis in the first place.
All the people here who are defending this current system and defending these pharmaceutical industry profits, many of whom are taking huge amounts of money.
You've said that President Trump asked you to, quote, clean up corruption and conflict. Sounds great.
If confirmed, you would be the cabinet secretary over the CDC. Do you agree that the CDC's work is critical to Georgia, critical for our country, and the health of the entire world.
You made almost $5 million from book deals, mostly promoting junk science.
If you want to move from advocacy, Americans are going to need to hear a clear and trustworthy recantation of what you have said on vaccinations.
When Big Pharma price gouges, the American people suffer. I think we both agree on that.
How can folks who need to have confidence in federal vaccine programs trust you to be independent and science-based when you stand to gain significant funding if lawsuits against vaccine manufacturers are successful? Is because it just isn't believable that when you become secretary, you are all of a sudden going to be consistent with science.
If President Trump tells you to do something, you're going to do it.
Will you support the development and distribution of vaccines for the avian flu? Yes or no?
If the evidence is there. The evidence is there. That COVID vaccine saved millions of lives, and you're casting doubt.
Are you aware of the vaccine safety data link?
Oh, yeah, I'm very aware of that.
Are you aware of the vaccine adverse event reporting system?
I'm aware of the vaccine safety data link that CDC keeps under a lockbox and will not let independent scientists
Are you
look at it.
aware of the clinical immunization safety assessment project?
As I said,
Are you aware of VSafe?
I'm aware that they're broken.
So in the 2 years following the rollout of the shots, 7% of my new patient appointments were people coming to see me with injuries from these shots. I've never seen anything like it in 20 years of practice. Any other product based on the injuries that I have seen would have been pulled off the market a long time ago.
You cannot give pharmaceutical companies, one of the most unscrupulous groups of individuals on the planet, the ability to make dangerous drugs and be held not liable. It's something that needs to go away. This was a big mistake and it needs to stop.
They want the mRNA platform to do well. It's a huge revenue source. They're planning on using this mRNA technology for, in a much wider applications.
You can do early cancer detection with a blood test. And using AI to look at the blood test, you can find the cancers that are actually seriously threatening the person. So we can, again, cancer diagnosis using AI has the promise of just being a simple blood test. Then beyond that, once we gene sequence that cancer tumor, you can then vaccinate the person, design a vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them against that cancer. And you can make that vaccine, that mRNA vaccine, you can make that robotically, again using AI, in about 48 hours.
There is no way to know what injecting someone with a messenger RNA technology is going to do to that specific individual. And that is because a large number of the side effects that they're going to experience are genetic based, and it's specific to your DNA.
This to me is a huge experiment we're watching to see what happens with the humans. We're seeing how much nanotechnology we can put in them. What's going on with them? Will they even be able to adapt? I don't even think they know what's going to happen. I think they're just going to be like, okay, there's a lot of turbo cancers, a lot of people dying, but there's going to be some that'll actually survive. There's always like some that adapt and survive. That's how they originally did vaccines a long time ago. They injected like 5 horses with a pathogen and 2 of them would survive. And then they took the antibodies and that was your vaccine. They're trying to get us all plugged into the human 2.0, the cloud or the ecosystem or the matrix electronically. And that's stuff that they can control, the physical component, not the spiritual component and the soul component of everything. But that's exactly what they want. They want everybody connected in so they can gather your data. They can watch where you are. They can control you. There's no privacy left anymore. They monitor every single thing you do. They can monitor everything that's going on inside your body. They can monitor everything, your thoughts, what's going on inside your mind.
Microsoft did a 3-minute video on their technology. They call them biological computers.
Imagine a world where we can do computation inside living cells.
The problem that we're trying to solve is really trying to have a more sophisticated diagnosis that can happen automatically inside cells.
Imagine a biological computer that operates inside a living cell.
The type of work that they're doing is essentially they're trying to sense, analyze and control molecular information.
In this project, we're trying to use DNA as a programmable material.
DNA is highly programmable, just like a computer, and we can program a whole range of complex behaviors using DNA molecules.
The only way to restore trust is pull these COVID shots off the market and hold the people who got it wrong accountable.
If confirmed, Mr. Kennedy, how will you work to regain the public's trust? I suspect it'll take some time in these important public health institutions.
I'm through radical transparency. I'm going to make these, the reason people don't trust the public health agencies is because they haven't been trustworthy. And you gave the example of COVID. At the beginning of COVID, everybody was rushing to get that vaccine. We had over a 90% vaccination uptake.
Yes, sir.
CDC's most recent recommendation is that Americans take the 8th booster. Only 23% of Americans are complying. That means 77% of Americans no longer trust CDC, and that is the problem.
The biggest problem we have is no one trusts doctors. That's the most common question I get from patients. Who can I go see? What happens if I have to go to the hospital? People are scared to go to the hospital. Everybody that walks in my office is worried about going into the system and having to get care in the system.
We've talked about food issues, and you made it very, very clear you're not going to tell Americans what to eat, but you do want Americans to know what they're eating.
We have 10,000 ingredients in our food in this country because FDA employs a standard called the GRAS standard and looks at any new chemical as innocent until proven guilty. In Europe, they have 400 ingredients in their foods. Kellogg's makes Fruit Loops for the United States alone. It is loaded with red dye, blue dye, yellow dye, and many, many other ingredients. They make the same product for Canada that's all vegetable dyes. And for Europe, if you eat a McDonald's French fry in this country, it has 11 ingredients. You eat the same product in Europe, it has 3.
So I think the issue in this case is big food. So people usually go to the supermarket to buy their food. Do you grow your own food? No. So most people don't grow their own food, right? And most people go to the supermarket, they take the oil that's available there, they don't think a lot, they take processed food stuff, and they usually the packages say, oh, it's rich in omega-6, it's good, it's rich in this and this. I mean, like, they can say whatever.
For example, we came out and started fighting against MSG years ago, okay? What did the big food industry do? They said, okay, we won't use MSG anymore. But they quietly lobbied for 6 months and they got approved over 15 to 20 different alternative names that they could use on the label for MSG. Natural flavorings. How often do you see natural flavorings on the label and you say, oh, that looks good? So we have to go back to square one and say, no, we cannot have any of these artificial names. We cannot have any of these artificial ingredients. If it's genetically modified, it needs to have a big stamp on the front of the food, whatever that food is. This food is genetically modified, and like the warning signs on cigarettes, this food is genetically modified. It has been shown to be harmful for your health. Could cause diabetes, cancer. I mean, can you imagine if we had the same warning that they put on cigarette packs on foods? That's what we need. This food contains 10 artificial man-made ingredients. They might not be healthy for you.
What we see in the world of integrative medicine is we see many of the solutions to the key health problems that we suffer from today that are essentially diseases of lack of adaptation to the modern world. and the modern foods and the radiation sources and the huge numbers of chemicals. Most of us are exposed to some 20,000 different industrial chemicals every day. And is it that complex of effects that's driving this huge epidemic of chronic diseases?
We are allowing these companies, because their influence over this body, over our regulatory agencies, to mass poison American children. And that's wrong. It needs to end. And I believe I'm the one person who's able to end.
More and more people are starting to wake up that we're living in a synthetic world. And it's these synthetic compounds that are everywhere, these chemicals, these toxins, these toxic thoughts, these toxic words, these toxic social media, the toxic everything that's affecting us and lowering our vibrational frequencies. So our job and what we're here to do is to try to educate people coming into this new golden age that we're coming into, this new great awakening, to let people know how easy it is to change your environment. This is based on epigenetics, Bruce Lipton stuff. The environment dictates who you are and how healthy you are. And the great thing is the body's, all we're doing is reactivating the best medicine that you have in the world. And that is your own body's self-healing mechanism, the one that God gave you.
We're in this unique position in history where we have an opportunity to do things that our forefathers haven't been able to do, where they have had governments that are totally intertwined with big corporate interests.
Ideally, we just get rid of the administrative state. That's the overall objective. In doing it politically, we have to deal with the feasibility. And the feasibility, I think, is best achieved by defunding, deregulating, stripping jurisdiction. These are the approaches, and doing it all based on a constitutional foundation wherever possible. Because once that's the basis, to overcome it and reestablish it, they have to establish that there's a constitutional foundation, and there isn't one.
This is not just an economic issue. It's not just a national security issue. It is a spiritual issue, and it is a moral issue. We cannot live up to our role as an exemplary nation, as a moral authority around the world, and we're writing off an entire generation of kids.
This is a day of affirmation, a celebration of liberty. We stand here in the name of freedom. At the heart of that Western freedom and democracy is the belief that the individual man, the child of God, is the touchstone of value, and all society, all groups and states exist for that person's benefit.
This just-in Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has secured the votes and is now the new Secretary of Health and Human Services.
On this vote, the yeas are 53, the nays are 47. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Department of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. of California to be Secretary.
Each of us have our own work to do. I know at times you must feel very alone with your problems and with your difficulties.
It was very hard, but I'm glad I did it. And, hard times are very impactful. But I have grown a much stronger, tighter knit community than what I had before. So I say, if you have convictions, voice them and let the chips fall where they may, but you'll be glad you did it in the end.
Moral courage is a rarer commodity than bravery in battle or great intelligence. It is the one essential, vital quality for those who seek to change the world, which yields most painfully to change.
There are people all over the world that are watching us right now. People that want change in their country. America is going to be the change for the world.
The time is now to restore our health, not just physical,
but mental and spiritual as well. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few.
Let's not let this opportunity slip through our fingers to take back our country.
Like it or not, we live in interesting times. They are times of danger and uncertainty, but they are also the most creative of any time in the history of mankind.
You watching, call your senators, call your representatives in the House, call your governors, call the AGs of your state. Tell them it's time to prosecute big pharma executives for the lies and deceptions and the crimes against humanity that they carried out deliberately so that they could generate obscene profits from people's suffering and death. This is a time to take action, peaceful but determined. This is a time to take our country back and make America healthy again, once and for all.
The majority of us is still upright and is still pursuing the same goal to educate people, to make people healthy, and to fight big pharma.
Yeah, we've been in the trenches on these issues in Europe for over 2 decades now, and one of the reasons that we've really come together with Jonathan over here in America is that this is the last bastion of freedom.
The greatest hope for this country is that we constantly remember our foundational principles, constantly remember what we have sacrificed to be free, and vow that we will never depart from that commitment, no matter what.
Few will have the greatness to bend history, but each of us can work to change a small portion of the event, and in the total, all of these acts will be written in the history of this generation.
But President Trump has promised to be the president for all Americans, and he has said to me that he understands that there's no such thing as Republican children or Democratic children. All of our children need to be protected, and whether you're in a blue state or red state, I'm going to do everything I can to work with you, whether you're Democrat or Republican, to restore child's health in this country.
Mr. Secretary.
Great job. Great job. Thank you all very much.
They profit from sickness, make money on disease. Big Pharma owns the media, a deadly scheme. Psych drugs for kids, antidepressants for all. Drug companies laughing as we're taking the fall. They own the media, they own the schools. They push the narratives and treat us like fools. We the people have had enough of it, 'cause Bobby's here to flip the script. They target the thoughts inside your head. Your head. Poison profits while we're all misled. Misled. The corporations think we're better off dead. Unpacking the lies that we've been fed. Unpacking the lies that we've been fed. Bribing the bureaucrats at the FDA, keeping poison in products, making children pay. They censor the truth and silence the facts while inoculating everyone with toxic jabs.